Arcade Heroes.
Greetings, it's Adam with ArcadeHeroes.com and welcome to the IAAPA 2021 preview video. This is where I'm going to give you a heads up and a preview as to what's going to be at the IAAPA 2021 trade show that takes place a little under a week from when I am recording this, which would be Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. Now, if you're not familiar with IAAPA, well, first off, it stands for the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. And it's been around since 1918. This theme park has been around the world for a long time, before Walt Disney World. And this is essentially today the E3 of the arcade and the amusement industry. Now, generally when a new roller coaster or theme park ride is unveiled to the world, it's done at this trade show event. And in fact, the last time this event was held back in 2019, I recall, I think it was SeaWorld unveiled a new roller coaster. And because the arcade business is associated with theme parks, there's a lot of theme parks that have pretty good arcades as a part of them. The arcade side of things has kind of adapted or adopted this as their really big trade show. There is still the Amusement Showcase International, also just generally called Amusement Expo, that takes place in the spring. But IAAPA is where, generally speaking, all the really big reveals and new stuff appears. And throw a map up here to kind of give you an idea of how big this is. So this happens in Orlando, Florida every year. It's always the week before Thanksgiving. And they've been doing it in Orlando since 2010, I believe it is. In 2009, they did it in Las Vegas. But ever since then, they've just stuck to Orlando, and as far as I'm aware, they plan on doing it in Orlando at least through 2030. So they've done a deal with the city or convention center or something. And a big reason why is because Orlando is, I think, the theme park capital of the world. You know, you have Walt Disney World, you have SeaWorld, you have Universal Orlando, and all that stuff in that city and general vicinity. And so it just makes a lot of sense for them to have it there. Although personally, I wouldn't mind it if it was in Vegas once in a while, just because that's pretty close to me. It's like less than an hour flight where I could drive down there. But driving to Florida from where I'm at is not really feasible. But last year, the event didn't happen for obvious reasons. And this year, it's, well, I've had some manufacturers talk to me and ask if, what I've been hearing about it. I've heard some that have been very hesitant to sign up for this because they're just not sure if it's worth it and how many arcades are still out there that exist to be able to go or interested in attending the show. And this year the map is a bit lighter on attendance than normal. So the blue spots would be empty booth spaces. Now, to give you an example, in 2019, this show was so packed it filled up the entire convention center, and they always have an outdoor area to showcase outdoor rides and things of that nature. But they had two giant tents that were also filled with booth spaces. But there's no outside tents from what I can tell this time. There is still the outdoor area, but since they weren't able to fill the convention center this time, then it's going to be a little bit lighter. However, as I will go over, there are a lot of manufacturers that have decided to go and showcase something. And so some of these companies have stated clearly what it is that they're going to bring to the show already. And so that's part of what I'm going to mention that. For those who haven't, well, I'll have to make some guesstimates or best educated guesses. And unfortunately, I always hate to do this, but on occasion have to share rumors. But I have tried to find out from everybody that I can as to what it is that they're bringing. Yesterday I spoke with Brandon Cook of Raw Thrills to get the word on what they were planning, and so yeah, done what I can, but in some instances I've not heard anything, not gotten anything back, so I don't know, but we'll get the best that we can out of it. And of course, stay tuned to this channel for the next few weeks, as I will be posting a lot of videos as to stuff that I saw at the show and getting my hands on it. And also I'm going to make sure that my camera setup is proper this time. So for Amusement Expo that happened a few months back, in the very end of June, very beginning of July, I brought the wrong piece for my tripod. So the one that I'm using now, this is what I'm taking to IAAPA, so I will be able to set the camera properly, point it at things. I also just got a brand new battery, so I was also having a lot of battery problems with this particular camera. And so I've got a new extended life battery, so it should be able to handle everything that I need. And I'll take some other stuff too. May see if I can get away with doing any drone footage, but I just don't know if there's any permission for that sort of thing. But, you know, give it a shot. Anyways, let's get into the manufacturers. I'm going to go alphabetically. And again, this is just based upon best knowledge, or they have stated what they are bringing to the show. And so the very first company that we're going to talk about is Adrenaline Amusements. They are at booth 2015, and they haven't announced anything, although they did update their website recently, finally, with some of their latest games, which would be Twister, Zombie Smasher, and Hungry Hungry Hippos. And so I would assume that those would be there, although there is a chance that maybe they're having issues in shipping and whatnot. That's what happened with Amusement Expo, is they had Twister and a couple of other things, but they didn't have the Zombie Smasher, they didn't have Hungry Hungry Hippos. They had been testing earlier this year Drakens, I think it was called, but there's no indication if that'll be there or not, but that'd be a nice surprise if they brought it. And I also would assume they'll bring their Hot Wheels game, which debuted at IAAPA 2019. And I should also say I do expect a lot of repeats from 2019 at this show, so wouldn't be surprised if there's just a lot of stuff that gets a second chance to be seen, as there were a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool games that were unveiled at that event, and just had the rug pulled out from under them thanks to the pandemic. And then we have American Pinball, and this is one that I was surprised to see show up. It was fairly recently that they were added to the map, and so for a while it was looking like they wouldn't be appearing at this event. They're at booth 215, and so I fully expect them to be mainly showcasing their new pinball machine, Legends of Valhalla, but they likely will have Hot Wheels, and their booth is big enough that they could have all four of their games, Houdini and Oktoberfest as well. But it was Houdini and Oktoberfest that I played at the IAAPA 2019 event, and also at that event they had a giant pirate-themed redemption game. I haven't heard anything about that, so I guess we'll see if they decide to give that a shot again or something else along those lines. But yeah, their booth seems to be sizable, so yeah, I expect that, or I guess I should say it's about the same size as Stern's, and so that's a little surprising for a still up-and-coming company. Next is Amusement Source International, and these guys are more a distributor. They're not really a manufacturer, and they mainly distribute equipment from Wallop, a Chinese company. And this booth, they're at booth 600. They should probably have Skip Time, a redemption game that's physical, has you running and jumping on a pad. And they generally bring Overtake VR. I think last time they had Speed Driver 5, and that's where I filmed that game. Very cool game, very much like Maximum Tune or Initial D, and it was in 4K too, so that's a one-up over both Maximum Tune and Initial D. I'm not sure if the latest Initial D is 4K or not. And then of course they'll have a bunch of Wallop redemption games. But interestingly enough, Wallop is at the show too on their own space, so I honestly have no idea what it is that they're going to have there. Maybe it'll be repeats. Sometimes that's something you'll see this show, where you'll have one booth that has certain products and then another booth that also has the same products, just in a completely different area of the show. And that's oftentimes just due to territory and distribution deals and all that fun stuff as to why you get these repeats. And then we have Andamero USA. They're at booth 1800. They sent out an email yesterday stating that they were bringing out a new SpongeBob redemption game. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody, really. And then they mentioned a bunch of their other redemption games. Interestingly enough, or sadly enough, they did not mention Pump It Up nor Chrono Circle at all. And I did see something recently saying that Round 1 USA does intend on getting Chrono Circle, so we will see that by my like game from Andamero in the States, at least through them. But unless they're holding those back for a surprise, I'm not sure. They are under new leadership, and at this point they seem to be focusing more and more on redemption pieces rather than video games, and so unfortunately that may just be the way that they continue to go. But we'll see. There's always a possibility of a surprise that they don't mention in a press release or an email beforehand, and then when we get there it's like, hey, that was worth coming. But especially this year, just because of the situation, I do wish that more would be upfront about what it is they're bringing to allow people to know whether or not it's really worth going there instead of waiting for surprises, because I do know that there are a few that aren't planning any surprises, and so we'll get into that. And then for the A's, we have Arkadia VR Arena. They're at booth 1829. And they're going to be showing off their 6-player VR product, but I don't know much more about them than that. And I will mention a few of the VR ones, probably not all of them. There's often been a lot of VR companies showing up at the IAAPA event really for the past several years. But in 2019, I think I counted around 80 different companies that were representing some kind of, or showing off some kind of VR product. In this business, the term we often use is LBE VR, which means location-based entertainment VR, and just throw that on there to kind of distinguish it from what you get at home. Now for one that I've had a lot of people ask me about, and I have reached out to them for a few different people. Haven't heard anything back. Don't know, maybe they're not getting my emails. I have had some email issues recently, but they've also not put out any press release as to what they're doing, and this would be Bandai Namco Amusements. And they're at booth 1300. They were at Amusement Expo, but they didn't have anything new. And as they told me at the time, they just weren't feeling very comfortable with introducing new products. And that was, of course, before a lot of the shipping and production problems were really happening like they are now. But still, it's been a long time since Bandai Namco's released a new video product. 2017 would be the last time when they released Maximum Tune 5. And it's just sad to see a company not be able to produce anything. Like, even when there wasn't a pandemic, they were just mainly focusing on some redemption collaborations such as Red Zone Rush with Andamero, but I just haven't heard anything from them at all. They do have a booth space, but with IAAPA it's oftentimes confusing to people who might be there for the first time, because when you go to their booth, they always have some Namco products, but then they have Adrenaline products, and they also have Raw Thrills products. And so the reason why is because Bandai Namco Amusements Europe also combines with Amusements America, that division, so the two divisions are there together, but because of the European side, they represent those particular lines over in Europe, in the UK, and because of that, that's why you see so many of those products there too. So if anything, there will be a bunch of those products at the Bandai Namco Amusements booth. Just, I honestly have no idea if there will be anything new from Namco themselves. Now, I have heard some rumors about certain things, and so this is where I have to get into that, one of those uncomfortable places, is that I've heard that there's something in development or in the works for Pac-Man Battle Royale. And at this point, the game's almost, I think it'll be turning 10 next year. And so maybe a sequel or an upgrade. Now, years ago, I did get my hands on a special version of the software for that. I'd like to call it Tournament Edition. It was just, the graphics looked exactly the same. The gameplay was almost the same. The main difference was that if you were playing single player, it would give you up to 3 computer components to play against instead of just 1. Whereas on the version that's out there, if you play single player, you're just playing against 1, and it's pretty dull, pretty boring. And so obviously that game was made for multiplayer, but you're not always at the arcade with friends. And so it also had different scoring, which was interesting, but I just never understood why they didn't release that. And so maybe it's that, although with this, as much time has passed, I'd hope they'd maybe enhance it a little bit more beyond that. But it's still a very popular game. I still hear about operators that wish they could get their hands on one. And so that's been the rumor for a while that I've heard. And I also have heard about something else that pertains to one of their racing franchises. It's just, when I was told about it, it's been a long time past since they were supposed to release something on that, and I guess just due to the continued pandemic, they've either delayed it or canceled it. I haven't heard anything officially on that, so I won't say anything more about that. So we'll see when we get there, when I get there. Next is Tek Entertainment. It used to be known as Tek Games, or just Tek. And they are at booth 1015. And I haven't seen any announcements from them either as to what they'll be bringing, but they usually have something there that's unique. And what's a little odd about Tek is they do test out a lot of concepts that they never release, but they'll bring them to events like IAAPA. And so I think it was 2019 or it was 2018, they brought along this shark tooth game where you had to twist the sides around the screen to move these teeth or something along those lines. It's been a while, but just that was the only time I ever saw that game. And then there's been other instances like that where they bring something and I guess it just doesn't get enough attention or enough inquiries, and so they just drop it. And so I'm expecting something like that, but they'll certainly have the stuff that they showed off at Amusement Expo that they have in production right now, such as Axemaster and Rock the Rim, Hypernova, their skee-ball games, because they do own skee-ball as well. They bought them a few years back, and so yeah, that's where you'll find all the latest in skee-ball. Now Betson, and they are at booth 615M 415. I think also there's another small space that they rented out to, but the bulk of it will be at 615, I believe. And technically, this is Raw Thrills' booth, but I've never seen it where, at any trade show where it says Raw Thrills. It's always Betson. And so they've always had this very close relationship with each other, which, I mean, you can buy Raw Thrills products from other distributors, because that's what Betson is. They're a distributor. But they're always so close that that's where Raw Thrills introduces all their stuff. Now, I mentioned speaking with Brandon Cook at Raw Thrills, and he did confirm to me there will not be anything new from Raw Thrills at this show. And so they will have Minecraft Dungeons Arcades, they will have Super Bikes 3 and Nitro Trucks and King Kong VR, but they are not planning on introducing anything new. And this gets to a problem that's not affecting just them, it's affecting everybody in the industry right now, and that's the production delays and the shipping crisis, really, that's going on, where you have just months and months of delays piling on top of each other with boat shipping. And of course you can fly things in, but then you've tripled or quadrupled your cost. And on top of that, you have inflation that's been hitting a lot of things really hard, particularly food and gas. But but not just those things, other things as well. And so he told me that if I was to order a Superbikes 3 right now, I wouldn't get it until April. That's how crazy it is. And so because of that, they don't want to be introducing new product that they couldn't ship for months. And so I don't know how that particular thing is going to affect all other manufacturers out there, but what I was told is wait for the spring as to new stuff. But otherwise, I mean, all these other things will be new. There may be those who haven't seen them yet, and like Nitro Trucks just didn't really get a fair shake. It's one of those games that just came out at a bad time, and so I'm sure they haven't been able to sell a lot of them, but it may be able to get a second wind from this event. And it's a good game. I have footage of it on my channel if you want to check it out. Next up is Bob's Space Racers. This one's always been a little odd, as I've never seen much that pertains to space racing with them, but they love to build games that are made for theme parks, but they also do a lot of stuff that works for redemption arcades. And the main thing that they have that everybody knows, they are the ones who create Whack-A-Mole. So they're the official source to get Whack-A-Mole games. Everything else is a knockoff. And so I doubt there'll be anything video related there. I don't recall ever seeing anything like that, but I'll still check them out. They will probably have some redemption stuff, but if they'd have anything else that's really unique and new, then I don't know. But they're at booths 2615 and 2821. They're a pretty big space, and they always have a big space because they have some big elaborate displays that are, again, made mainly for theme parks and carnivals. And then finishing up the Bs, we have Boxblaster VR, and so this is a company that's been around for a few years and looks like they survived the pandemic as well, so congrats on that. They're at booth 2891, which is not in the arcade area, and so on the map on the IAAPA map and setup, there is a coin-op pavilion, as they call it, and it's just the lower left-hand corner or southwest corner of the convention show, I think. They don't have a compass on there, so I'm just going off memory of where I think everything was pointed. But the VR is just kind of scattered all over the place, and so I think they're in the northwestern side. But anyways, Boxblaster VR, they'll have their 4-player standard setup there, but they've been working on some other stuff, particularly with Benchmark and Elaut USA, where they had this thing called VR Experience, which is supposed to be an unattended single-player VR sort of multi-game thing that showcases or allows you to operate different Boxblaster VR games on that platform instead of having to buy the more expensive and larger 4-player setup. And as far as I know, all of their software is exclusive, developed in-house, and so that's something that they do to set themselves apart from the many others that are out there doing these sorts of things. But that's Boxblaster VR, although I'm not sure on the VR Experience game if they will have it at their booth or they'll just allow Elaut USA to be showcasing it. Always depends on the backroom non-public deals that they do. Now, to get to the C's, one surprise that I came across that I don't recall seeing these guys at IAAPA before. They've been at Amusement Expo or the AMOA show many times because they're based out in Nevada. But Characters Unlimited is going to be there, and they're at booth 3712. If you're not familiar with them by that name, then you should be familiar with them by the name Zoltar. And so they're the ones that created the Zoltar fortune teller machine, and they still make them. They make a lot of other fortune-telling machines, so if you want to put a different character in there, like they've done, different presidents have been available, and other variations on Zoltar, but obviously the one that gets the most attention is Zoltar itself. But they also do some other cool animatronic things, and I've seen a price list for them before where you could get a giant T-Rex head that was animated. It was something like $30,000, or I can't remember exactly, and it's been several years, but still, they're really good at animatronics, which is great for theme parks or other places, other venues that want to have something a little more lively in it. And I'd love to put an animatronic T-Rex head on my Jurassic Park arcade machine, but probably a little too pricey for that. Then Chicago Gaming Company, they're at booth 613, and so we should see the Cactus Canyon remake at their booth there, but they'll probably also have their other remake games like Attack from Mars, Medieval Madness, Monster Bash, all that stuff. Whether or not they would have the rumored Arcade Legends 4, I don't know. I'm sure it's a little tough for them to be competing in that business where Arcade 1UP is so aggressively licensing so many games and releasing just those one things out there. And their solution is, or the Arcade Legends 3 is $3,000, and it has 130 games on it. But Arcade 1UP again has made a lot more strides out there to get their stuff. So I'm not sure if they're going to be focusing on that anymore, and probably more the pinball stuff. Then we have Coastal Amusements. They're at booth 1319, and this company is known a lot for crane machines. They do a lot of redemption machines. They're the ones that released Iceman, or imported Iceman to the States some years ago, and I haven't heard anything from them. Their website has basically remained the same since the pandemic started in March 2020 or so. And so they have a big space, but they're ones that I'm kind of expecting to probably just have a repeat of 2019, as they're probably having trouble getting product in from China, because that's where a lot of their stuff, I don't know if all of their stuff comes from China, but a lot of it does. And I think their main showcase title that they've been focusing on that was at Amusement Expo 2021 was Ring Toss and Ring Toss Junior, and so just simple carnival style redemption games. But they are one company that often has something in the redemption space, and so whether or not we'll see anything like that, I don't know, so we'll see. Next is Creative Works. They're at booth 3871, and this company has always been a little difficult for me to figure out what it is that they do, as I believe they've been mainly focused on theming and working with laser tag arenas and smaller theme parks and places like that to help them put themes together. But occasionally they do have games, but it's just kind of random, as it seems, as to what it is that they're showcasing. But this year they are putting a lot of stock into virtual reality, which they hadn't been like that in the past. And so what I've seen them already mention is one called Fury Hoops Madness VR, which is supposed to be a basketball type game. I'm not sure, they didn't show exactly how it works. They just mentioned that and had some public promotion stills to show off, but nothing that really showcased what it does exactly. They have Limitless VR, which is bringing VR to laser tag arenas, so that's probably the biggest thing that they're pushing. They have something called Lucky Putt, which is with mini golf. They'll have the Hyperdeck VR, which at 2019, the Hyperdeck was, I think, in their own booth, but now Creative Works seems to be acting like a not a publisher, but a distributor for that, so that'll be there. And then they also will have a SpongeBob VR thing, so I'm guessing since Andamero's not really chasing the VR fairy, then that must have gone to this company called Creative Works. And then we have DOF Robotics, and these guys, they don't make small stuff for small arcades like mine. They are always more focused on what we call medium scale or large scale attractions, and so big stuff, big expensive stuff that's really, really impressive to see. But again, you just don't find it in small places like this, or not for routes. And so they'll have their Hurricane 360 VR, which I saw that in 2019, where it's basically almost like being on a roller coaster, but it doesn't have a track, and so it's all robotics and hydraulics and whatnot. Very impressive, very cool, and they throw VR in there with it. And they'll also debut something called Monster Jam Gravedigger at the show, but I'm not sure if that is involving VR. It might, or if it might just be another medium scale type ride. And then we have Elaut USA. They're at booth 1024, sorry. And Elote has also been expanding their reach as far as the different brands that they're representing. They're representing a lot more than just Elote. Now, Elote is a name that's mainly known for things like crane machines, the higher end crane machines, and so those will certainly be there. But this year they're also going to have Touch Magics there, so that's where we'll find the redemption game Mega Blaster, as well as other games by Touch Magics like Space Warp 66. And then they also are going to debut Surf and Safari by TeamPlay. This is also one that I'm kind of curious to figure out what the deal is, because Surf and Safari or TeamPlay, they have their own booth at the show. I'm guessing they'll use that to showcase more of their photo booths, but whereas Benchmark Games, which is owned by Elaut USA, is going to be selling and manufacturing Surf and Safari. So something to do with contracts, I'm sure. But so that'll be there, and then of course lots of other redemption and crane stuff, and so it's a really big booth, one of the biggest booths of the coin-op pavilion area. And so I'll keep my eyes peeled if there's anything else to find there that's video related. And then since we're in the E's, we've got exA-Arcadia, and I don't think they were planning on really going to this event. It was kind of a last minute thing. So they do have a very small booth, the small size that you can get, a 10 by 10 booth. And so they'll probably only have one or two of their dedicated cabinets, but they will have some new games to show off there. Their main games that they're going to be putting on display is Nippon Marathon Turbo Hyper Running and Kung Fu vs. Karate Champ, but I should hopefully be able to get a look at some other games that have been announced but not shown off yet. But I don't believe they will be showing some of the games that I saw and played at Amusement Expo that I unfortunately wasn't able to get any footage of. But if they're there, whatever's there, I will get it this time, guaranteed. So I'll be there to check it out. It would be cool to see like Samurai Showdown 5 if they bring that, or Cotton Rock and Roll. Then moving on from the E's, and there's none in the F's or the G's, we have Hologate, which is a big name in LBE VR, and they're at booth, or sorry, I should have mentioned exA-Arcadia real quick. They're at booth 4800. Hologate's at booth 4482. And so they'll be showing off the latest games for their Hologate platform, which has installations all over the planet. And they mentioned in a release the other day that they're going to have 3 virtual reality escape rooms for the Arena system, Zombite 2.0, the sequel to our hugely popular Zombite, and the Hologate Terminal. Not sure what the Hologate Terminal is, and the new Hyper Golf that appears to be doing something with mini golf that's almost arcadified, but they show they showed 9 different variations, so it's almost like this is designed to be for big FEC, where you can't buy just one and you have to buy 9 of them, but I'm not sure. It's not clear. It's also unclear if it has anything to do with VR. I mean, as far as I'm aware, everything that Hologate's done so far has involved VR, but on the page talking about this Hyper Golf, there's no mention of VR at all. So could just be an interesting new thing that they're doing with mini golf, maybe projection mapping. I think that would be a great variation to try, but I guess we'll see if they do that or not. And then getting to the I's, we have ICE, or Innovative Concepts and Entertainment is what that stands for, but they generally just go by ICE, and that's the logo that you see on their games. It's a big booth. They always have a big booth, but I haven't heard anything about what they plan on bringing to the show. They usually do show off something new, but they might be in the same boat as Raw Thrills, where there's just certain things that they can't get their hands on. They do manufacture their games in the States. They're based out of New York, but this has been the problem with a lot of places where you may have your production in the States, but some of your materials come from outside the country, and those have to go on a boat, and so you're just sitting there waiting for components or certain things to arrive before you can put everything together. And so I'm not sure if that's the case there, but I would expect them to have their All-In and Monopoly redemption games, and probably showing off their Home Pro line as well. And then in the eyes, the only other eye that pertains to what we're interested in would be Incredible Technologies. They don't always come to IAAPA, so I was a little surprised to see them there. They're at booth 728, but I would assume they'll be there with their new Golden Tee PGA Tour game, and possibly the new Arcade Classics collection that they announced a short time ago. And so that might work out to see that for the first time and not have to wait until next year or find it in a bar somewhere. Then we have JET, which is short for Jennison Entertainment Technologies, and so I think it was 2019 where maybe it's 2018, where they bought Family Fun Companies, which was also focused on making a lot of redemption and videmption products, and so that's all just integrated as one now. Haven't heard anything as to what they're going to be bringing, so they may have a surprise of a new videmption game, but most of their focus is on redemption, as well as kiddie rides. They've been doing a lot of kiddie ride stuff recently, and so that's what I would assume to be finding there. And then we have Kalkomat and IGPM Group. Our IGPM Group is the company based in the States, and they represent Kalkomat, which is a brand out of Poland. But they're at booth 917, and they mainly just focus on boxing machines. Once in a while they'll come out with something like an electromechanical arcade game or something that's more redemption focused, but that's where they'll be. And also more focused on redemption and prize merchandising is Komuse America. They're at booth 811, and I would assume that they'll have the same kind of booth setup as they had at Amusement Expo, which was a couple of new redemption games and a new merchandiser. Komuse is the company behind the Keymaster games, and so that actually wasn't technically Sega. Sega was just their distributor, but Komuse was the company making that, and so they had something at Amusement Expo called Swing and Smash, which was a lot like Keymaster, just a new variation, new twist on how to play for a prize. Now we have LAI Games. They're at booth 1000, easy to remember. It's a pretty big booth, and I would assume that they'll have a lot of their stuff there that they showed at Amusement Expo, such as the new Slam and Jam, Pearl Fishery, and Toy Factory, I think it's called. Hopefully they have Outnumbered. That was one of those games that debuted at IAAPA 2019, and just again, bad timing seemed to cut it short. But don't know if that'll be there. But the big thing that they're going to be focusing on for this show is Asphalt Legends, or Asphalt 9 Legends, or is it Asphalt Legends 9? I'm not sure. Sorry, butchering that. Should have double checked it beforehand. But they'll have the new Asphalt arcade game there in both they call it the Premium and the Motion Deluxe versions. And so I'll get my hands to play that as to one of the few new racing games that's going to be on the market. And from everything I've been hearing, it's been testing out really well. And so I'm sure it'll be a big hit, but I do know that they are limiting the amount of sales just because there's limited production available. And then we have something that's going to sound strange probably to you, as it's not a company that I mention much on the blog. It's usually one that I only mention or think about around IAAPA time, and they're called Meta4 Interactive, and I believe they changed their company name to Meta4 before Facebook changed their corporate name to Meta. But this company used to be known as Minority Media, and they're actually the very first company where I had experienced virtual reality, but this was like 2013, 2014, somewhere around there, and that's where I got a lot of vertigo using the headsets of that era. But of course now things have advanced a lot, and so when I used the King Kong VR at Amusement Expo, I didn't experience any vertigo, so that was nice. The headsets were doing the refresh job that I need, I guess, to not experience that sort of thing. But anyways, Meta4 Interactive, they're going to be at booth 213, and they're going to be showing off Transformers VR Battle Arena and probably some other VR items, but the Transformers one's the only one that I've seen mentioned by name. That's we'll see if they have anything else interesting there. And another VR company that's going to be at the show, hitting the only P on the list, that would be Phenomena VR Arena. They're at booth 4875, and they have a VR arena solution that's multiplayer. They have a shooter game. They are going to debut a dancing game at the show as well, but don't know much more than that about them. And then to the only R on the list, we have a new company that I discovered kind of on accident, almost overlooked it when I was just doing research for this, looking over the map and seeing who would be there. And it's a company called Retro Arcade, and they're at booth 1610. It's actually directly behind the exA-Arcadia booth. And they don't have a website listed, and of course with a generic name like that, it's kind of hard to find something that would be them specifically. But in their description, they state that they are bringing back some, or remaking or reproducing old classics and putting them into newly produced cabinets. And the two games that they are going to release in 2022, which are the games that I assume will be at their booth, are going to be Taito's Ice Cold Beer and Zeke's Peak. And so should be very interesting to see what else they might be bringing to the table. But I mean, in collector circles, Ice Cold Beer is highly valued, and especially for all the bar arcades that are out there. You know, every bar arcade wants to have the Ice Cold Beer game, just like they all want to have Tapper as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if this company also tries to maybe reproduce Tapper, just because in reality, Tapper came out in 1983, which was not a great year for arcades, and I think there was something like only 1,000 units produced, and there's a lot more than 1,000 bar arcades out there. And so when everybody wants one, and then of course there's a lot of collectors that like that game and want one, or retro arcades that want one, there's just not a lot, no supply to match the demand. And so be interesting to see if they go that route. But either way, if you're interested in Ice Cold Beer or Zeke's Peak and you want something new and licensed from those, then this company is promising to do that, which is interesting. That you know, somebody would be doing maybe something kind of like the Arcade 1-Up model, but for arcades. That would be kind of nice, instead of everything just going to the home. And now we're hitting the S's, and this is of course one of the bigger sections, S's and T's. So there's a few companies that start with that. But the first one is Sega Amusements International, and they're at booth 1315. And out of all the companies that I've seen, this Sega's announced the most new stuff that we haven't seen before that will be at the show. Now, they don't have the biggest booth. I heard that their booth actually got cut down in size, but they're going to pack it with a lot of stuff, and so they probably just won't have multiple versions of each one, and so it is a little bit smaller than what they normally do. But you know, I'm pack a big punch with a small amount. And so, as mentioned on the Arcade Heroes blog, they will have the new upright version of Mission Impossible, the 2-player version, and they will have the smaller version of ATV Slam, or the standard version as we can call it. It has no motion. And they will have VR Agent, so this is a new debut piece, and VR Agent is developed by the same company that developed ATV Slam for Sega, and so they're just keeping it in the family, so to speak, as kind of like a second-party developer. And so that will be there, and then also Men in Black, the new Redemption game with the license, will be there too. So there'll be plenty for me to film at the Sega booth, and I don't anticipate any other surprises beyond that. They probably just wanted to get that all out there for everybody to know. It's like, hey, please come to the show so you can see our latest stuff. And I know they do a lot of their manufacturing in the UK, and so I don't know if the UK is experiencing quite the same shipping issues that the United States is at the moment. So it may be possible that they're able to get more product out to consumers than some of the other companies, maybe due to the situation. I don't know for sure, but yeah, that's something to keep in mind there. And I'll have plenty to talk about with Sega. We have Schaefer Distributing, which is a distribution company. They have a pretty big booth, and at the last IAAPA they had a VR setup, but I haven't seen anything from them as announcing if they're bringing that same VR thing. Unfortunately I can't remember what it is. Sorry, scatterbrain a little bit. And but I would assume that they'll have something along those lines, and maybe a couple of other pieces from other manufacturers, but don't know if I'd anticipate anything new. We have Smart Industries, which is mainly just a crane manufacturer, so probably just a new crane or something there. Nothing in the video realm, unlikely that they would do any video redemption stuff. And we have Step Revolution, and this is a company that is known. I've mentioned them before. I own 2 of their games, Re-Rave Plus and Stepmania X, and so I imagine that at their booth 806 they're just going to have Stepmania X. Highly doubt that they would use this time to debut something new, especially where they're one of those companies that has been affected by the shipping problems, because I believe they do manufacture these cabinets in China, and so getting stuff in has proven a little difficult, but they've been getting a lot of Stepmania X's out there. I know there's more than 100 of them out there already, and it just keeps growing. The game's selling really well, so probably just using this Expo as a way to continue to build on that momentum there. And it looks like I have the map open here, and just noticing something that I hadn't seen previously. Going back, there was another company called Rilix, and so they have what they call the Rilix Coaster, a roller coaster simulator composed of a physical coaster with vibration motors synchronized with VR glasses, providing 100% immersion, and has 20 unexpected scenarios which can reach up to 90 miles an hour. And those scenarios range from blizzards through tropical mountains, beaches, as well as wars and science fiction. And with the use of glasses, you can see all the details on 360 degrees, just reading off of the exhibitor profile here. And so, sorry, that's back in the R's. But back to the S's, we have Sturm Pinball. They're at booth 424. Sturm does not use IAAPA to unveil new products, and so it's very, very rare that they use either this or something like Amusement Expo to debut such things. The only time I can remember them doing something like that was 2008, when they showed off a Spider-Man Redemption game that they never released. But otherwise they save that for just announcing it online, and then they'll bring it to something like Pinball Expo first. But they'll have Godzilla, they'll probably have the Jurassic Park pin, the home version, Mandalorian, Led Zeppelin. And of course, the Insider Connected platform should be there, but that's what I expect to see from Sturm. And we also have one that I also didn't notice this yesterday when I was doing a lot of my research, but a company called Swiss VR, and they are actually the ones that created the Coliseum VR. It's a VR foosball table, and so this had been represented by Baron Games International in the States back in 2019, and I have footage of this on my channel, but they have their own booth this time at 1815, and so it looks like that's the primary thing they're going to show. It also mentions ice hockey, so VR ice hockey will be there, but it looks like they're just decided to go at it themselves instead of going through a different company like Baron. And I should mention Baron, I did not see them on the list at all, and so they're still in business, but I just, let me just double check since I'm here, but yeah, they're not on the list under the B's. So let me get back to where I was, get back on track. And then we have TeamPlay Incorporated. They're at booth 1613, as I mentioned. Most likely they're going to be showcasing their Fun Stop photo booths. I do know they have something on test out there. I don't know what it is, but it sounded like it would be a video redemption piece that isn't Surf and Safari. So maybe it'll be there. I don't know. They haven't announced anything, so it'll be one of those surprises. And then we have the Really Big Crane Company, which I guess I put that in the T's, although probably should be in the R's, as their name suggests. Oh, and let's see, TeamPlay's booth 1613, Really Big Crane Company's 1600. So Really Big Crane Company, while they'll obviously have crane machines, they have a video basketball arcade game called Zombie Jam. And so that was a surprise to come across back in, I think it was 2019 or 2020, or yeah, that was Amusement Expo 2020. And you know, since they're willing to do something like that, maybe they'll have a different video redemption piece or video piece. And so, because like, yeah, the Zombie Jam doesn't need to do tickets. It's really just a video arcade game where you control everything with basketballs. So be checking them out. And then we have Triotech, booth 1069, and so they have, I think this is the largest booth Triotech's ever done. And while they got their start in the arcade business with stuff like Wasteland Racers and the Mad Wave Motion Theater, they've really grown beyond that into catering more towards theme parks and family entertainment centers with medium scale attractions like the XD Theater or the XD Dark Ride. And so they're going to be showing off something new, probably along the XD lines as opposed to the smaller form factor stuff, but I would still expect to see Storm VR there. That should be there with a new film, and they should also have their Typhoon 10th anniversary machine there. But haven't heard if there's anything else from Triotech that'll be there, just that it's a big booth, and so they're planning on showing off a lot of stuff. And by the way, thanks for hanging in with me so far. I know this is a long video where I'm just kind of almost lecturing, and so hopefully it helps you sleep if you needed anything to sleep with. We're almost done. So in the U's, we have Uncontained VR, booth 4489, and so they are putting a VR experience inside of shipping containers, or converting shipping containers to have these VR experiences. And they say it's free roam VR, but I'm just not sure exactly how the setup goes as far as how free roam it is. Just, you know, free roam within a shipping container, I would guess. But that will be there, and they'll be debuting that to the industry. And then we have UNIS at booth 1331, and they had stated in a newsletter that they would reveal a bunch of new products this past October, but October came and went, and there was nothing from UNIS. And last I checked their website, there was nothing new, no new updates. They did have a big online virtual expo in October 2020 where they did unveil a bunch of products and had been obviously hoping to make some strides with that there. But I don't think that worked out as they had hoped, just because, you know, the things were trending down at the time, and they did stay low for a little while, but then of course things skyrocketed all over the planet again. And so I would expect them to have their Bigfoot Crush game, their All-Star Pogo Jump, but whether or not they'll have any of these other products that they mentioned at this virtual expo, like Formula Zeta, which is a racing game with a Formula One racing game that looks a lot like Sega's old Indy 500, or Rowing Champs, which is like Namco's Rapid River, and then they had a game that they showed last year that was kind of like gosh, the name's escaping me now. Namco's Prop Cycle. That's what it was. And so hopefully we see those there, but I did notice that UNIS's booth is smaller than it normally is, and so not sure. But sometimes UNIS does bring surprises. Oftentimes they do. I think it was 2018 or 2019 where they started showing off some stuff with Taito, but of course Taito really hasn't been doing much over in Japan to integrate. Oh yeah, that's right. They probably will have the Elevator Action Invasion, which is something that's been done with some sort of collaboration with Taito, and that's out at Dave & Buster's. stores everywhere, but just hasn't been listed on their website yet, and I haven't heard of it really being sold in distribution yet, so I haven't really been sure what's been going on with that one. But we'll see. I'll be there to find out. And then one that was a surprise that I saw early on when I was looking at the map weeks ago was Unite Technologies, or Unity Technologies. And they're at booth 2000, and the last time I saw them was IAAPA 2019. That's when they were showing off their new card system called RF Pay, and they were looking to compete in that card payment space by producing a low-cost, low-maintenance solution. But with the pandemic, just haven't heard anything from them. Now, they have done video arcade games before. They got their start with Neon FM, and they did World's Fastest Drummer. Whether or not they have something else new, I have no idea. Their website doesn't show anything new. They haven't updated it in a long time. I mean, last time I talked with them, they were talking about the PC Mini thing. I know I'm forgetting the exact name, but I haven't heard anything about that. So I guess we'll see if that's there or if they've just moved on from that. And then we have Valley-Dynamo. They're at booth 1624. And so the big game that they've been promoting lately is one called Jet Pong. It's mainly made for bars. It's a beer pong type game, and got a lot of LEDs and sensors on it to work without an attendant. And so, you know, they've been really hyping that up. So that's what I would expect to see there, along with their standard stock of pool tables, foosball tables, shuffleboards, that sort of thing. And also in the V's, we have Virtuix. They're at booth 610. And this is a company that's been around for a while, but you might not be super familiar with the name. Their main product is called the Omni Arena VR, and they were the developers of the omnidirectional treadmill. And so I do have footage of this on my channel, but it allows you to run or walk or run in place with VR, and you know, you're not actually running off or anything. And so they've been doing some esports related things, and so they'll have the latest stuff for that there. We also have VR Coaster, booth 2272, just the latest version of their VR Coaster ride. I don't know much about that, but yeah, I would assume it's just the latest iteration of that. And since we're in the V's, this is all VR stuff. We have VR360 Action at booth 2278, and they do have a number of interesting VR products on their site, but they have a lot more listed than looks like would fit into the booth space. And so I'm not sure what it is that they'll bring for sure. But if you're into VR, I'll check out VR360 Action. And then we have VRsenal at booth 1606, and so very likely they will be showcasing their Darth Vader lightsaber, or Vader Immortal lightsaber dojo, which was at Amusement Expo. But they have a pretty big booth space, so unless they're going to fill that with a lot of Vader Immortals, or they may show off some of the other games. Like the first time I saw this company, which I believe was 2018, they had Predator, which they never released. They had Fruit Ninja VR. They had Beat Saber. And I think they had one other game, but I can't remember what it was. But obviously most of the attention went to Beat Saber, and that's kind of just where they put all their focus. The Predator game was interesting, but again, nothing ever seemed to come of it. So I would guess maybe they could have something like that there. They don't have the Beat Saber license anymore just because of how Facebook's behaving. But yeah, their focus will be on Darth Vader. And last but not least, we have Wallop Technologies. As I mentioned before, I was surprised to see that they would have their own booth here. They will be at booth 604. But the reason I'm surprised is because they have Amusement, Source International, and LAI Games will be there too, representing their products. And so what they'll have at their booth that would differ from those, I honestly have no idea. But it's possible they might have something else that's there that maybe we've seen it before, maybe it's new, I don't know. But that's some of the fun that you come across when it comes down to these sorts of things, is finding out new things and coming across surprises. It's just, since it's such a huge show, it's oftentimes good to find out beforehand what to expect, so you can go and and just go to something, especially, there's like 10 miles worth of walking to do if you were to walk every single aisle in the convention center plus outside. So it's a lot to do in just a few days worth of time. So that's where personally I do, well, it's fun to be surprised. At the same time, I like to know what I'm doing so I can plan things out. Or I mean, I'm kind of terrible at that, but I still try what I can to make sure that I get everything there. And I mean, there have been times where I've shot over 200 videos, and it's a lot of data and a lot of filming that I do. But of course, some of it is multiple videos of the same product and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot to do at IAAPA. But anyways, I hope I didn't bore you too much, or if I did and helped you get to sleep, then I hope that you slept well throughout all this. But yeah, just stay tuned for IAAPA 2021. So I will be there on Monday in Orlando, but the show doesn't actually open until Tuesday, and then it goes through Friday. I'm not going to be there till Friday, but I will be there for a few days and be getting all the footage that I can. I will see if it's possible for me to do a live stream from the floor. Sometimes that's restricted, sometimes they don't care. As press, I might be able to have some leeway with that. But either way, stay tuned to this channel. Thank you for subscribing, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon with more arcade goodness.